Hey guys, it's me, your aim coach. Today I wanted to discuss the most, in my mind, overlooked aspects of aim, that is to say, technique, and prove why it's so important by taking a look at the definition of aim, and especially good aim. Now, this video is going to be divided in two parts. The first one being the theoretical basis of it, which I highly recommend you watch because it's going to enable you to understand the second part. Second part, which is going to be reviewing analysis of actual gameplay from very good, average, and bad players to see what's to do and what's not to do. Well, first step, definition. According to my research and most dictionaries, aim is the act of directing a weapon towards a target. Now, this is a definition that doesn't really help in our context of gaming, so I try and modify it to make it more adapted to our context. And in my mind, aim is one's ability to control their crosshair movement with the intent of shooting at a target. This definition has the advantage of presenting two key words. The first one being control. Control is the act of regulation, of standardization, and this is going to bring another concept which is central in our mind. That is a consistency. When you talk about good aim, you're talking about consistency and how to hit basically the most amount of shots, no matter the difficulty, the most amount of shots. Now, if you're presented with two shots, an easy and a hard shot, which one are you going to think is the most consistent? Well, it's the easy shot. You're going to hit it most of the time, and this is the art of aiming. It's making every shot easy. It's not being able to hit the hard shots, and this is one misunderstanding in my mind, that, well, we see montages of people on the internet which hit insane shots. These are very, very unlikely, and most of the time people don't hit those. So why care about the exception? The goal is to make every single one as probable as possible. So this is the first notion, consistency. Now the second notion is hidden in the word, the second keyword being target. The choice of the target and the choice basically of the motion of what motion you're going for is efficiency. You're trying to go for desired results. For example, in tactical shooters, you're going to want to aim for the head because of how much of an advantage it is of a button. And so most of the time it's not a problem for people. They actually know what to look for. But sometimes there's bad outcomes to this. This is also the part of efficiency which not a lot of people care about. That is to say, what results from the situation. Okay, I went for the shot which had the best outcome, but now I'm in a bad situation. Like after tensing up. When you tense up, it's a lot harder to get micro adjustments, that kind of stuff, or even smooth motions to work. So this is going to be something you need to look for. Efficient movement, no waste of movement, no excess movement. You always want to be able to make the next move properly. Now, that being said, we've discussed consistency and efficiency. Those are the two components of a good aim. And now that we've talked about this, I want to introduce you to a new way of thinking about aim. If you will, aim is a collection of reactions. That is to say, given a certain situation, certain variables, you're going to react a certain way. And in every single situation, you're going to have the same 4 steps. The first one being recording the information. That's to say, what's on your screen, what's in your ears. And the clearer it is, the less information there is, the more you're going to be able to handle, and especially to analyze. The second step. The third step being to choose the movement which is most adapted to that situation, taking into account consistency. I mean, how confident you are in hitting the shot, how probable you think it's going to be, and second one, how efficient it's going to be. Is desired results there, and overall the outcome good? And fourth being how you perform it, because how you perform it determines how good your aim is. And with this, you can see that there's already some things to optimize. That is to say, first thing, recording the information. If your screen is blurry, if you can't see anything because your movement is too erratic, you have too many variables to take into account, you're not just going to register everything. And this is something also to be careful about. it's controlling the variables. We've talked about control before, and this has a link to consistency, because you have to understand everything in the first place, meaning everything that you can control and minimize the impact of is worth being done. Here, for example, if you can minimize the amount of mouse movement, well, you can see the screen clearer. If you minimize the amount of strafes and movements that you have, you can understand better and plan ahead what you're going to want to do with your mouse movement. So being able to understand clearly what's going on in the game is very, very important, because your analysis will only be better, and the decision you're going to make, although it's going to be thought thanks to aim training, is going to be much more adapted. You're going to be able to have the right movement because you understood everything. And this is also where aim training comes into play, because aim training doesn't only train muscle memory, it doesn't only train you to be more consistent with your flicks, it also enables you to find a technique which is more consistent. That is to say, you're not going to have one motion for a flick, or you're not going to want to be as close to the target as possible, as fast as possible. You're going to want to maybe underflick, like some people have different techniques, but you're going to find the one which is most consistent for you given your skill level and your disparities, strengths and weaknesses. And this is the goal of technique. Technique is the ability to find the best reaction to any given situation, also while ensuring that every situation is readable and that you can react to it appropriately. Alright, before we get to the second part, I wanted to clarify something about the 4 steps of the reaction. The fact is, those steps overlap. It's not one after the other, it's in a very separate way. Each of them overlap one another, which means that when you're analyzing the data, for example, you can also record some more data. Now, when you're performing the motion, you can as well be recording data or analyzing it or taking another decision. The goal is to enable everything at the same time. That is to say, you don't want the performance of your motion to stop you from being able to seeing what's on your screen, that is to say, to recording information, or any other overlapping process, let's say, to occur because you're doing something wrong. That's also what technique is going to try and help in order to basically clarify this reaction process. Okay, now it's time for the second part, and we're going to review some gameplay to see what it actually looks like to make mistakes and to correct them. This gameplay is an example of bad technique hindering the player's ability to understand what's going on the screen. Here, what you can clearly see is, despite the bot going a certain way, the player's mouse is going the opposite, making it very hard for him to understand what's going on the screen. Is the bot going left? Is the bot going right? Is the bot not even moving? We don't really know because it's very confusing. And so by this, we just don't allow our brains to basically multitask. That is to say here, making the motion and at the same time recording information. And this is very important because you need to be able to react any time, especially in scenarios like these on Kovacs, where basically there's something happening all the time and you can't just afford to lose some of it. Now, here is Messi OW's gameplay. So you might know this guy. He's a very, very known aimer out there. And basically what you can see is his technique is very consistent and always enables him to understand what's going on. That is to say, there's 2 possible situations in which it can be. Either his crosshair is going in the same way as the bot, or the bot just changed direction, so his crosshair is going the same way, but well, he's going to react. And so those 2 situations are the only one basically which his brain is going to have to care about. Okay, so the second example is something that maybe lots of you are really familiar with, is the whiff. I mean, which is not really a whiff in this situation because he kills the opponent. But in this clip, we see someone who rushes his shots a lot. And so in this case, you can see that he barely takes the time to really understand what's going on, to record enough data to see a pattern emerge. That is to say, well, the enemy is moving a certain way, especially towards him. This is an easier shot you're going to land. And and so it doesn't take the time to analyze it because not enough data, and also doesn't really choose any option. You can see that the first shot is fired even though the crosshair hasn't moved even. He hasn't made a choice, he just panicked. That's the thing. And so you can see that, I think I've just counted, but I think he shot 6 bullets before being able to hit the target in the head. That means there's a big window of time before he should have fired. It probably would have taken a lot less time and even been a little more consistent to have waited a bit to understand what's going on and then react. And we're going to see an example of that. Okay, so this is Demon1's gameplay. You might know him, you probably do if you play Valorant. He's a very famous player who's primarily known for his aim. And as you can see on this example, 2 things to consider. First one is the fact that he takes a bit more time to analyze what's going on the screen before even starting the motion. 2, the motion is slow. Actually, it's pretty slow. Although you could consider that the guy is really good at aiming, he's been considered almost the best aimer in the world by a lot of people, and still, his motion is not snappy. It's a reasonably slow flick, which enables him to still, while performing the flick, record the data that's on the screen. And actually, you can see that even after the first shot, he does a micro adjustment to the right, just in case the guy went further. And he can make that assumption because he's analyzed the data during the flick. Well, this one is a great example of mistakes being made in the decision-making process. The thing with choices is you can't take 2 at once. You've got to make a choice, and there's going to be one action being performed. And here, the problem is, if you take the wrong answer, well, that means you're missing out on the right one. You can see that the player, he is flicking to where the bot is at the start of the motion. The problem being, he's late already because the bot has moved. He tries to flick to it, but unfortunately underflicks. The problem being, he misses. And this is going to happen a lot of the time if you make the same decision. You're going to underflick sometimes. The problem being, you're going to miss a lot. Now, if you do overflick, which is considered to be the right answer, well, you're going to be able to wait for the target to come and then click on it 100% of the time, or almost. And so here, this is bad technique because the choice being made here disables him from taking the other decision. And here again is MattyOW's gameplay, and you can see that he flicks. I mean, this is exaggerated here, but this is a great example of, well, he's over-flicking. He's trying to go for where the target is going to be at the end of the flick rather than at the beginning. And this is a great example of technique. So he can just wait for the target to come and then go for the next flick. Now, this is the last review. Here we're going to review some static gameplay, and what you can see is the player's likely performing the Bardo's technique. That's to say, he's going for a very fast flick and then going for micro correction. The problem being, maybe it's a bit too early. Maybe the technical aspects are not there yet. So the flick is not controlled at all, and you can see that there's a huge over flick there, and on other parts of the VOD there are huge under flicks, but basically the flick is very variable, and I think Bardos can afford to over flick, and I think, and we'll see later, that Bardos can afford to flick that fast just because he's got that good of a muscle memory going on. And the problem here is the flick is too fast, which enables you from being able to understand what's going on the screen. So there's a little time of freeze where you're like, well, where am I? Where is my crosshair? And so there's this small window of time which you lose, and which doesn't really exist just as much in Bardo's gameplay. It's very fast just because Bardos knows, like, if he's got the feeling at the start of the motion, well, he knows about where he's going to be, and this reduces by a lot the time it takes for him to micro adjust. Not because the micro adjustment is much faster, but just because the time it takes for him to analyze is a lot faster, because he has the information much earlier than this player. So here's finally Bardo's gameplay. You can see that in some flicks it takes a lot less time for him to micro adjust, but what's actually important to me here is how little he over flicks, especially in clusters where there are clusters of targets. He underflicks, or at least he flicks very close to the target, which means that he controls his flicks. The goal here when performing the Baldur's technique is not to go as fast as possible, as early as possible. The goal is to make your way up the speed by increasing it slowly, but it's always about following your own skill set to try and still make possible the existence of overlap in the reaction process.
Well, that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Also, I wanted to say that you can contact me on any of my social medias, which are in the description. I offer free coaching sessions for now. They're free, absolutely free. You can book anytime. Just contact me on my Discord or whatever, or even in the comment section. I don't know how long it's going to be free, so well, make sure you get one. Yeah, I'll do some more of those because I really enjoyed doing those. So yeah, hope to see you next time.